another episode of 28 Days of Color presented by S.T.E.A.M Engine Academy. Today's episode is 23, Color in Healthy Eating. Today we'll talk about the Haitian Revolution and freedom soup, and then speak with Caroyln Foster, former culinary chef and real estate agent, about healthy eating and what we can do to take care of ourselves on the inside and out. The Haitian Revolution was a series of conflicts between 1791 and 1804 between Haitian slaves, colonists, the armies of the British and French colonizers, and a number of other parties. Through the struggle, the Haitian people ultimately won independence from France and thereby became the first country to be founded by former slaves. The Spanish began to enslave the native Taino and Siboney people after December 1492, when Italian navigator Christopher Columbus sighted the island that he called La Isla Española, later known as Hispaniola. The island's indigenous population, forced to mine for gold, was devastated by European diseases and brutal working conditions, and by the end of the 16th century, the people had virtually vanished. Thousands of slaves imported from other Caribbean islands met the same fate. After the gold mines were exhausted, the Spanish were succeeded by the French, who established their own permanent settlements, including Port de Paix in 1665 in the northwest, and the French West Indies Corporation took control of the area. Landowners in western Hispaniola imported increasing numbers of African slaves who totaled about 5,000 in the late 17th century. By 1789, on the eve of the French Revolution, the estimated population of Saint-Domingue was, as the French called their colony, 556,000 and included roughly 500,000 African slaves, 32,000 European colonists, and 24,000 affranchis, which are free people of mixed African and European descent, or blacks. Haitian society was deeply fragmented by skin color, class, and gender. The affranchis, a former French legal term denoting a freed man or emancipated slave, but was a term to refer negatively to mulattoes and were sometimes slave owners themselves, and they aspired to the economic and social levels of the Europeans. They feared and rejected the slave majority, but were generally discriminated against by the white European colonists, who were merchants, landowners, overseers, craftsmen, and other things. The aspirations of the affranchis became a major factor in the colony's struggle for independence. A large part of the slave population was African-born from a number of West African peoples. The vast majority worked in the fields, others were household servants, boilermen at the sugar mills, and even slave drivers. Slaves endured long, back-breaking workdays and often died from injuries, infections, and tropical diseases. Some slaves managed to escape to the mountainous interior, where they became known as Maroons and fought for guerrilla battles against colonial militia. Among the causes of the conflicts were the affranchis' frustrations with the racist society, turmoil created in the colony by the French Revolution, nationalistic rhetoric expressed during voodoo ceremonies, the continuing brutality of slave owners, and wars between European powers. In May 1791, the French revolutionary government granted citizenship to the wealthier affranchis, but Haiti's European population disregarded the law. Within 2 months, isolated fighting broke out between Europeans and affranchis, and in August, thousands of slaves rose in rebellion. The Europeans attempted to appease the mulattoes in order to quell the slave revolt, and the French Assembly granted citizenship to all affranchis in April 1792. In 1793, a commissioner, La Guerre Félicité Sonontax, was sent from France to maintain order and offered freedom to slaves who joined his army. He soon abolished slavery altogether, a decision confirmed the following year by the French government. In the late 1790s, Toussaint Louverture, a military leader and former slave, gained control of several areas and earned the initial support of French agents. He gave nominal allegiance to France while pursuing his own political and military designs, which included negotiating with the British. In January 1801, Toussaint conquered Saint-Domingue, and in May of that year, had himself named Governor General for life. He put the peasants back to work on the plantations under military rule and encouraged many of the French proprietors to return. In December 1801, Napoleon Bonaparte, wishing to maintain control of the island, attempted to restore the old regime by sending in his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc, with an experienced force from Saint-Domingue that included Alexandre Sabis Petition and several other exiled mulatto officers. Toussaint struggled for several months against Leclerc's forces before agreeing to an armistice in May 1802. However, the French broke the agreement and imprisoned him in France. He died April 7, 1803. Some of Toussaint's lieutenants, most notably Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Henri Christophe, resumed the war against the French in 1802. They were soon joined by Pétion and other mulatto leaders who were infuriated by the restoration of restrictions on their caste. Both the blacks and the mulattoes were enraged by reports that France had re-established slavery in Guadeloupe and Martinique, and the struggle was carried on with great desperation. The French were weakened by an epidemic of yellow fever. Leclerc succumbed to the disease in November 1802, and the conclusion of the Louisiana Purchase in May 1803 signaled Napoleon's intention to withdraw from North America. Less than 3 weeks later, the French position in Haiti became truly hopeless when the renewal of hostilities between France and Britain on May 18, 1803 arrived. On November 18th, the indigenous army under Dessalines defeated French at the Battle of Vertières, and French General Jean-Baptiste d'Antienne de Vermure, Comte de Rochambeau, surrendered Camp Français, the last significant French stronghold. Under the terms of the surrender, the French were given 10 days to evacuate, but Rochambeau showed no haste in embarking his troops. Dessalines responded by threatening to turn his cannons on the French ships and anchor in Cap Français harbor. Ironically, it would fall to the Royal Navy, which had been blockading Saint-Dominique since the resumption of the Napoleonic Wars, to carry out the evacuation. British Captain John Bligh, with both Rochambeau and Dessalines and the French garrison, finally departed Cap Français as British prisoners. While this marked the end of the French military action on Haiti, France continued to maintain a presence in the eastern part of the island until 1809. On January 1st, the entire island was declared independent under the name of Haiti. Many European powers and their Caribbean surrogates ostracized Haiti, fearing that the spread of slave revolts, whereas the reaction in the United States was mixed. Slave-owning states did all they could to suppress the news of the rebellion, but merchants in the free states hoped to trade with Haiti rather than with European powers. More important, nearly the entire population was left utterly destitute, a legacy of slavery that has continued to have a profound impact on Haitian history. Welcome back to another episode of 28 Days of Color, presented by S.T.E.A.M Engine Academy. Today's episode is Color in Healthy Eating, and we're here to talk with Caroyln Foster about her experience in the culinary world and how it affects the Black community. Hello, Caroyln. How are you?
Hello there. How are you? I'm doing fine.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. So tell me, when did you first learn to cook, and what inspired you to pursue that?
Well, my first cooking job was cutting the ends off of the string beans with my mom in the kitchen. And we would just talk. I must have been, maybe 10, 12 years old. And it was just really pleasant. It was fun. And we just bonded like that. So it was my mom and my grandmother that got me interested in cooking.
Very nice. And that's always a sweet memory to have, something that you guys share. You remember it just as she does.
I certainly do.
And what is your educational background in culinary arts once you grew older and decided to really take on this career?
Okay, I took a few classes, but mostly it's been just about reading and experimenting and doing it myself. Nice. So I would, and this started way back in the 60s. I mean, I still have savers and gourmet magazines from the from the 60s and 70s with some of my favorite recipes. So I have a recipe collection. As a matter of fact, all the books that you see here are cookbooks.
Oh my goodness.
And you can only see some of them. You cannot see all of them, but they're cookbooks.
It's a pretty vast library from even just the little bit that I can see.
It is.
And where are some of the places that you worked as a chef?
Well, I did mostly personal chefing and a little catering. And the personal chefing was my favorite. because here's one story. I did a personal chef job for a couple and their mother and the guy's mother, and it was at the son's home, and his wife, of course, and their two kids, two boys, were there. And it was so funny because I made waffles for mom and the family. That's what they requested. And the kids had never seen waffles made for real, ever. They thought waffles came from a toaster. They were fascinated. I mean, they were all over me. It was so funny because they had never seen it before. It was always from a toaster.
Mm-hmm.
And with the waffle iron and the batter and everything, they just got excited.
It's a big difference between the toaster and a waffle iron, a waffle.
Absolutely. And that was one of my favorite jobs.
And what do you think is the importance of healthy eating in the Black community?
It's so important. It's so important. It has to do with your health, your well-being, anything you can think of. It's just necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult in some places, food deserts they call them, but if you can find, if you can do it, the worst thing that you can probably do is fast food. Fast food is going to make you ill over time.
Yeah, and we've seen all the things that they're doing chemically with the food, and so at
Yes.
this point, we're not even sure what we're eating all the time. But specifically for you, how has healthy eating impacted your life and your health?
Well, it's funny because when I was working in IT, which we'll talk about later, working for this company, for Wells Fargo, we would go out for lunch, pretty often. And what's really weird, and I gained a lot of weight. When I stopped working and retired, and started doing my meals from home, always, I dropped 70 pounds.
Oh,
And
wow.
didn't even think about it. It just fell off because I wasn't doing the things that I was doing at work. I was the person that brought the bagels and the cream cheese, and I was the one that brought the croissants and the donuts and all of that stuff. I did it. I was the one that made sure the candy jar was full all the time. But once I stopped doing that, the weight just boom. I told my husband I was dropping pounds in the hallway because all of a sudden I'd look and 3 or 4 pounds would be off. So and after a while I'd lost 70 pounds.
Wow, congratulations on that. That is a huge feat, and that's really incredible progress.
It was.
And it's not just for adults. How do you get children involved in cooking and preparing their food?
My favorite thing was with Kingston. Kingston had a little interest in cooking. So when they came here, what we did was we set up a show for YouTube, and Kingston and I would cook, and it's called Cooking with Grandma and the King, and that's what we named it. And you can find it out on Facebook or YouTube, I think. YouTube. But we would just cook, and he was so interested and right on it. I wanted to keep it up, but because we moved to another city, it made it more difficult. But I can't wait to get him out here. I don't know if he's still interested in cooking, but it was such a pleasure. And to see this little guy just blossom with the food, it was amazing. I loved it. So if you get your kids involved in just the little things, they will take an interest in the food that you're cooking.
Right. If they can see it made and they're invested in its process, then part of the victory of learning how to do it and doing it is getting to eat it.
Yes. And that was the best part. because he loved what he cooked, what we cooked.
Very nice. And so with the things that kids like to eat, what are some of the healthy recipes you like best?
My favorite recipe for it, and it's so easy, um, is a chicken, a whole chicken. So you'll have more than one meal, you know. Um, Slice it down the back, butterfly it, lay it open, sprinkle it with a little Worcestershire sauce. I like Lea & Perrins better than any of them. I have a blend of herbs that I make, and it's basil and oregano and thyme and marjoram. Um, and I put that on the chicken and just bake it. It's so easy and it comes out so good. It's just the herbs make it. The herbs just do it. It doesn't take long to cook. You can cook it in less than an hour, and depending upon the weight of your chicken, of course. But it's so easy. You make some vegetables, and that's it. You can make some mac and cheese, or potatoes, or rice, or noodles, and it's easy. It's fast. You get more than one meal. What I like to do is cook things like a stew or a casserole, something like that on the weekends. Make two of them. Then you can switch off on the week during the week, so you don't have to cook every night.
You still have something different to taste every day.
Yes. So 2 nights of this, and 2 nights of that, and pretty soon you're at the weekend again. You make two more, and you're done.
And so what are some other things that you're passionate about? What are some of your other, ventures that you're in? And how does cooking tie into that and entertaining?
Well, I love to entertain. I used to do it a lot. Now with COVID, I haven't done it in quite a while, but entertaining was something that I just love for friends and family, because for me, cooking, serving good food is love. That's all. It's just love. And the best word that can come out of a person's mouth is mmm. When I hear that, I know, yes.
That is the seal of approval. Yes.
It is.
And so what are you up to now?
Well, right now I'm in real estate. I have retired from my career in IT and gone into real estate. I'm in Nevada, near Las Vegas. It's Henderson, Nevada, and it's wonderful. I love it. What I like the most is that to see that person put the key in their own home for the first time. It's a wonderful feeling to help somebody get that first house,
Right.
because that's the start. That's the beginning.
Right.
Building wealth, that's one way to build wealth.
Mhm. And do you get an opportunity to entertain them and pull out platters of your dishes for them for open houses and things like that?
Absolutely. I love to do open houses in real estate, because especially during the holidays, because then you can really show off. But I like to make something for the people that come to my open houses, and it's just a pleasure for me.
Wow, you've got such a broad range of talents and things that you've done. And even with your healthy eating and cooking, there's just more on top of that. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we go?
No, I think that just do it. I mean, doing something simple and easy is the best, because that way you'll keep going. And making it healthy it's easy in some places, it's difficult in others, but you've got to try, because the health of yourself and your family depends on it.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me and share your story. I really appreciate it. And thank you.
Pleasure is mine.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Closing out our episode on color and health, we're going to read a book called Freedom Soup, and this was written by Tammy Charles and illustrated by Jacqueline Alcantara. Find out the story behind Freedom Soup and the group of people that decided to save themselves from slavery. Freedom Soup. Today is New Year's Day. This year, I get to make freedom soup. Ti Gran says I've got a heart made for cooking, and it's time I learn how. Outside, snow is piling cottony thick. Inside, warm, sweet air flows. Haitian compa pours through the speakers. The shake shake of maracas vibrates down to my toes. Ti Gran's feet tap tap to the rhythm. We pause our dancing and Ti Gran says, first, bell, is the epice. She places the pilon between my knees. Click clack, click clack. Together we mash garlicky herbs to the compa beat. Then we add it to our meat and let it rest. Next is your favorite, the pumpkin? Ti Gran smiles and pulls it out of the boiling water. Ribbons of steam dance up to the ceiling. She lets me peel the pumpkin. The skin melts off like butter. Then Ti Gran browns the meat in a new pot and gathers the rest of the ingredients: pumpkin, herbs, potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and celery. Your turn, she says. One by one, I slide the ingredients into the bubbling liquid. The pumpkin-y garlic smell swirls around us. Know why they call it freedom soup? Ti Gran asks. Because it's free? It's the same answer I always give. Ti Gran laughs her loud, belly-deep laugh. Oh, Belle, nothing in this world is free, not even freedom. She begins to tell a story, the same one she tells every year. A story of a place she was born, Haiti. Long ago, my country was a land of sugarcane and coffee fields, and my people were slaves, working under the fiery sun, growing vegetables, making soup for their masters, soup they were never allowed to eat themselves. Freedom soup was only for the free. No soup for New Year's? My face feels hot. And then what happened? I ask. Years passed. The slaves' hands were tired, spirits shattered, blood shed. Freedom stolen, pride gone. Enough was enough. It was time to fight and win back their freedom. The trumpet blares. I hear it, Ti Gran. The revolution is here. The compa beat drums through my skin. I see them, the fire dancing in their eyes, as they fight to take back what's theirs. I see the colors of freedom, the tan sheets of Port-au-Prince, covered in broken black chains, kettles of hot yellow soup, a sweet pumpkin-y garlic aroma filling the air. I see Ti Gran's people, my people, eating soup to celebrate the end of slavery, eating soup to celebrate the start of freedom. We clap our hands and sing to the sky. Haiti is free, freedom soup for everyone. Ti Gran lowers the flame while I throw in the pasta. My grandmother taught this tradition to my maman, who taught it to me. I taught it to your mother. And I'll teach my children one day? Ti Gran's dark sky eyes smile as we rest in the living room and she pulls me in real close. And they'll share it with everyone who will come after. The pumpkin-y garlic smell sense that fills the air as cousins, uncles, and aunts arrive and dance. We can share stories of Ti Gran's faraway island and taste freedom again and again and again. What a lovely soup you made, Belle, they say. I puff out my shoulders wider than the Haitian mountains, stand so tall I can almost touch the moon. All around, just like my family, people gather and share. In our house, we celebrate until the last drop of soup is gone, gone, gone. The end.
One more again. Mas não. Mas não. Mas não. Baseado. Espesso. Baseado. Espesso. Espesso. Mas não vou sem te chamar baseado. Espesso. Baseado. Espesso.